Welcome to the city of Camas. I actually was not expecting to see that for a while. I thought that was when we would cross the river, which we will do shortly. We would enter Camas. But apparently, this is the introduction to my Camas video. We've just left Washougal. East Street turns to 3rd Street, and this is Camas. So I guess I never gave a summary of Washougal because it ended so quickly. Washougal and Camas are contiguous cities, similar in a lot of ways. They're both kind of like orbiting Vancouver, and we saw a little bit of Washougal, and now we're going to see a little bit of Camas, which is similar but not identical. And I might be visiting this plaza right here. Now, the main thing I was going to talk about in Camas was what goes on up at that hill over there and what goes on in downtown. But here we also have one of my favorite things, which is where we can go to the Dollar Tree and the grocery outlet together. So I'm going to do that really quickly. Something I haven't seen for a while in Costa Rica. And right here we have the Washougal River, and for whatever reason, it makes sense, I assume that the Washougal was the dividing line between Washougal and Camas, and it makes a real natural dividing line. You can also see that is actually a wide and fast river. There's a lot of water in that river right now, and that's not a really long river, but it does come out from the Gifford Pinchot, I believe, up in the mountains of the Cascades, and right now they're at the peak of the snowmelt, so a lot of water comes out and it joins the Columbia, I don't know, like half a mile that way. And right now, as you can see, along with that beautiful nature, we're also kind of walking down a highway. We've kind of left residential areas, and you know, we saw kind of maybe the ugly side of Camas. What I'm thinking is that very soon we'll be in downtown Camas, which will be a lot nicer. But I do want to add the other side of the coin of having all this roads and highways and kind of the community being cut is that you do have really great nature access. I said that in Washougal. A lot of places in Clark County, you have a lot of good nature access. And if you follow those roads up the Washougal River, that's also where there's a lot of new home construction, because the land along that river, you have beautiful views, so a lot of people are building like vacation or retirement homes up there, as well as just home, normal homes to live in, but it is a scenic area. And I looked at Google Maps, and I have about a mile left to walk along this highway until I get to Camas. And kind of interesting, because I gave you some bad information when I said these towns are contiguous next to each other, which you can see that, in practical terms, even though when we passed the border we were still in the same area, there is kind of a split between Washougal and Camas. And I don't remember that. I remember in my mind them being closer together and basically crossing over that bridge, and then you'd be right in Camas. Looks like I have a ways to go, but I am not complaining. That's actually a really nice, flowing stream picture, especially considering where we are. Speaking of housing, you can see there's a lone house, and that house was probably alone on this road for a long distance, and then you can see next to it people are building townhouses, and those are new. Camas and Washougal, but I think especially Camas, are very hot housing areas in Clark County, and I will talk more about that when we get to see downtown Camas, which should be in about, 5 or 10 minutes. And as I said earlier, all this housing along the highway here looks pretty old. I mean, you do have those arts and crafts, dormer windows, stuff like that. And it's also interesting for me, given the price and heat of the real estate market here, that along here, this highway, you don't have a lot of new stuff being built. And I guess that's just because they can build it slightly up the hill. It's also interesting, when I'm in Washougal, I said, I'm not going to make the video that I expected to, because I was expecting Washougal to look more like Camas, and Camas to look more like Washougal. Now, having said that, once we cross this here, we will see another side of the town that should be a lot nicer. So we have another little stream here, and as I understand it, it's about to join the Washougal River before they both join the Columbia. And from what I could see on my map, once we cross this stream, we will be in downtown Camas. So I'm going to turn off the highway here, because this looks like this is a residential neighborhood, and I think the street goes to the same place. You can see more about the housing and more about the neighborhoods as I walk down this street. It looks very 70s. That looks anywhere from the 90s into the teens, maybe even 4 or 5 years ago. So as I said earlier, variety of housing in Washougal and Camas and throughout Clark County, although most of it is pretty recent. So we also have this nice shady park here, and it's also been nice since I've come back from Costa Rica, because Costa Rica, even though at times I could get along, I got a lot of hotness and sweatiness and dehydration here. Today I think I've been like walking 10 miles, and while I'm tired, I haven't felt overheated. A lot of that has to do with all this nice shade. Small town America at the golden hour in spring as the flowers are blooming. That's why people come to this channel, right? Here is the Opus School of Art and School of Music. So, one thing to say about Camas is that it is now an affluent town. Now, when I was young, it wasn't, but it's considered to be one of the top 5 bedroom communities for Portland. Don't know how many people here are commuting into Portland, or how many commuting into Vancouver, or if people are working from home, but it does have a certain, air to it. Now, within that, unlike a lot of places in Portland, it doesn't feel really bohemian. You have a School of the Arts, but you might have like a slightly different take on that than you would in a lot of places in the Portland area, because it's more suburban. And a lot of that's stereotypes. I don't know if they're true. We're going to go check out downtown for more examples. I was going to put this in as a reveal at the end, but I have a good shot of it here, especially if I zoom in. That's a large paper mill, and when I was a kid, I was talking about Camas. When I was a kid, Camas was a place we made fun of because sometimes the air would waft over to Battleground from Camas, and we called it Camas Day. So when I was a kid, Camas was kind of the most blue-collar industrial part of Clark County, and at some point in the 90s or the 2000s, it kind of changed its reputation and became a foo-foo suburb. Don't know exactly why that happened, and I do notice also the paper mill does not make any smell, and it looks like it's still occupied and in creating paper and employing people. So we have 2 different cities right next to each other. Sushi, beer, that type of thing. Let's see what's down here. So we do have like on-street dining. We have a dining and entertainment district, such as it is, as well as other businesses. Massage, Chamber of Commerce. Juxtaposition. I don't even know what's there, and I don't want to find out because it would ruin my illusion of how cool this is. So you do have a very active downtown. You look like you have some businesses that are thriving. Not a lot of foot traffic right now, but a fair amount. And yeah, actually there's stuff going on here. Now within that, and I've said that at a couple other places, I've said that in like Mount Vernon, sometimes you have a downtown like this that's basically like a Disneyland where people drive in and park and walk around. How closely this downtown is, integrated with the residential areas and stuff like that, is a question I would have an answer for. But, I'm not complaining too much because, yeah, this is actually a nice little place. Look, you can have directions to drink beer. There's also another irony in this, is that with the discussion of the light rail and stuff, the Clackamas city council, I believe, voted against it, which was purely ceremonial. And kind of the irony there is that this is actually like a good example, you know, even though I had my exceptions to like, yeah, this is a good little walkable urban neighborhood in a small town. And a lot of the places like we can see on Mill Plain that actually do have BRT look like suburban hell. So in one way, like, I can understand, like, they have a good thing going on here. Maybe they have some reasons to be suspicious. Maybe I don't agree with those reasons, but I'm not going to totally condemn this. And people who don't know Camas might think, oh, that's a suburban hell. It's not. It is a nice little town. And there's probably lots of back and forth in that debate, but I can show, yeah, Camas does have some nice commercial areas, have some nice residential areas. It can be a nice place. Also, at some point, I have to find the bus station, because as nice as it is, I do eventually want to get back home, or back home. Well, there's the alternate reveal shot. You can see one side of the street, we have like trendy street dining brewery. On the other hand, we have a really old industrial building. Again, this kind of goes against a lot of stereotypes because we have a wealthy residential suburb with old industry plant, and then we have good downtown urbanism. So 3 different stories, and they are all going together in part of the reality of living here. Okay, I found a bus stop. So there's my bus stop. Speaking of bus service, like I said, they have once an hour weekend bus service. I think it's every 30 minutes on weekdays, including some express service. But practically, because from here you'd be going to either Fisher's Landing or Mill Plain, and then to get to downtown Vancouver would take even longer, and then to go to Portland, I don't know, that'd be over 2 hours, 2.5 hours, unless there's an express bus. So even though, you know, you have some of the appearances of, you know, good walkable downtown, and there is some transit access, it is still, like most cities like this, very much built around cars. Speaking of which, I have to stop and see what time it will be here exactly. So should be here in a little bit more than 10 minutes. If my schedule is correct and everything is going fine. Otherwise, well, it does go until 10. I'll figure something out. So this is one of the places where I had a long day. I put several things in, and it's about as much of my journey. And since they're places I don't know well, I'm not giving like an encyclopedic view, but I do have some memories here. Like I said, I've lived here times 1, and hopefully gives a little bit more view of what Clark County is like, what the Portland area is like, that it's not all what it looks like, and that all these towns are complicated because they have industry, commercial, and residential areas in a way that people might not expect. So, that being said, I'm going to sit down and rest and wait for my bus, and probably take a couple days to edit and post all of these, but I hope you found it interesting, and there will be more.